Hey everyone, my name is Amisha and I'll be training all of you in Spirit and taking a little bit of time today to talk about prescription and other drug use. So the organization that's administering this training is Empower Somerset. Empower is an acronym and it stands for Encouraging Prevention with Education and Resources. We are a nonprofit organization based in Central New Jersey, and we empower individuals and families to make positive lifestyle choices by promoting healthy, drug-free communities through education, collaboration, and connections to resources. I'll be your instructor today. So again, my name is Amisha, and I'm the Health and Wellness Program Associate for Empower Somerset. These are our different learning objectives for today. So I plan on going over what S.P.I.R.I.T is, the risks of prescription drugs, heroin, and fentanyl, prevention education for youth, parents, and caregivers, effective ways to communicate, safe storage methods for medications, and lastly, locally available support and resources. So what is S.P.I.R.I.T? S.P.I.R.I.T stands for Somerset Prevention, Information, and Resources in Service Training. So it is a lengthy title, but basically it's a collective effort to connect key organizations, general community members, families, and individuals with substance use disorders with preventative tools and resources. So now we're just going to get into some of the informational content of this training. So what is a gateway drug? The gateway drug hypothesis refers to the pattern of substance use during adolescence where legal substances precede the progressive use of illicit substances like cocaine and heroin. So some examples of substances that have been known to fall under this category are alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, prescription opioids, and inhalants. According to the American Addiction Centers, there is evidence that using substances early in development does result in a greater probability that an individual will abuse other substances. However, the reason for this interaction is not well understood. So some believe that it's a condition that may represent some combination of inherent or genetic factors and the interaction of environmental factors like peers, learning, and stress. So the relationship between early alcohol use and later use of other drugs has the strongest evidence to suggest that it might be a gateway drug. However, the gateway theory suffers from a number of potential methodological flaws. So at the current time, it is unable to specify a causal relationship between early use of any drug and the potential to use or abuse other drugs later. And lastly, using marijuana either alone or in combination with opioids has been shown to increase the risk of opioid misuse, and there's no evidence that marijuana works to treat opioid use disorder. So now we're going to go into the risks of prescription drugs, heroin, and fentanyl. According to national data adapted from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, about 5 in 10 kids as young as 12 obtain prescription pain relievers for non-medical purposes. That's a whopping 50% of kids younger than 12 that are at risk for serious medical complications and addiction. So it's clear that there's a large issue of children obtaining prescription pills that are not directly prescribed to them. And this is a major issue because prescription drugs can be highly addictive. Using prescription drugs can also make an individual feel very tired, nauseous, and constipated, and it can even cause paranoia. Specifically, when opioids are abused at high doses, an individual can overdose, making it hard to breathe properly, which can ultimately result in death. So some examples of commonly used and abused prescription drugs include oxycodone, amphetamines, and benzodiazepines. Now we're going to get into the risks of fentanyl. So fentanyl is a dangerous and addictive drug, and it decreases the amount of oxygen that enters the brain, which is also known as hypoxia, which can result in the death of the user. So it's important to note that because fentanyl is so strong and potent, a single dose of naloxone, which I'll talk a little bit more in depth about later in the presentation, may not reverse a fentanyl overdose. It may take 2 to 3 administered doses of naloxone in order to reverse a fentanyl overdose. And because of the potency of fentanyl, it's very likely that a fentanyl overdose can lead to death. So now we'll talk a little bit about the risks of heroin. Heroin is a potent opioid mainly used as a recreational drug for its euphoric effects, and it can be highly addictive. So one way individuals take heroin is by creating a heated chemical liquid that they can be injected that can then be injected intravenously with a syringe. And one danger that this poses is that when needles are shared between individuals, the risks for long-term viral infections, there are risks for long-term viral infections to spread, such as HIV, hepatitis C, and hepatitis B. Bacterial infections in the skin, bloodstream, and heart can also increase when using unclean or shared needles. So aside from the addictive complications that can occur from heroin use, there are also health-related infections that can spread through the using population. So now let's discuss some signs and symptoms of prescription drugs, heroin, and fentanyl use and misuse. So oxycodone is usually prescribed to treat moderate to severe pain. Some of the signs that an individual is using or abusing oxycodone are lying about activities and whereabouts, attempting to borrow or steal money to purchase oxycodone, and abusing the substance in favor of other activities that were once important. The symptoms of oxycodone use include slurred speech, impaired coordination, disrupted sleep, and appetite changes. Now to just go over the signs and symptoms of amphetamine use. And amphetamine is a central nervous system stimulant that causes high blood pressure with feelings of increased confidence, sociability, and energy. It's super important to note that amphetamines are not opioids, and some signs of amphetamine use include being hostile or aggressive, having altered sexual behavior, not sleeping or eating for prolonged periods of time, and fast or excessive talking. The symptoms of amphetamine use are increased body temperature, dilated pupils, faster breathing, decreased appetite, and blurred vision. Benzodiazepines are nervous system depressants. They are usually prescribed to relieve anxiety and muscle spasm and also to reduce seizures. Just like amphetamines, benzodiazepines are not opioids, but when they're combined with opioids, it increases a person's risk of overdose and death. So some signs of benzodiazepine use are social withdrawal, limited participation in formally enjoyable activities, failure to meet expectations at work or at home, and visiting multiple doctors to obtain multiple prescriptions. And then some symptoms of benzodiazepine use are muscle weakness, drowsiness, unsteadiness, headaches, and lightheadedness. Now to go into the signs and symptoms of fentanyl use, some signs include social withdrawal, declined performance in work or school, psychomotor agitation like fidgeting or tapping, declined interest in things that they were once interested in, and visiting multiple practitioners to obtain multiple prescriptions. And then some symptoms of fentanyl use include attention difficulties, impaired memory, insomnia, drowsiness, and constricted pupils. And then some signs of heroin use are neglecting responsibilities and personal hygiene, skipping school, having a sudden and inexplicable need for money, and wearing long sleeves and pants during warm weather to hide drug use marks or track marks. And then some symptoms of heroin use include slowed breathing, weight loss, nausea, slurred speech, and impaired coordination. So prescription drug, heroin, and fentanyl misuse has a direct impact on parents, youth, and society. According to the CDC, there was an estimated 107,622 drug overdose deaths in the US in 2021. This is an increase of nearly 15% from the 93,655 deaths estimated in 2020. Drug overdose deaths have been and are continuously becoming a threat to individuals across the country. So in order to have reform, we need to assess the specific impact drug misuse is having on the different sectors of our population. So parents or caregivers of someone who is abusing drugs can experience feelings of guilt, anxiety, feeling responsible for the child's actions, and experience strains between familial relationships. Caregivers can also experience different extremes in response to drug misuse. For example, caregivers may avoid engagement, they may attempt to control or stop the situation, or they may even encourage taking the middle road and blending in to hide from the stigma associated with drug use. Children who are raised in a household where opioid misuse is occurring can experience an increased risk of mental health problems and drug use, accidental opioid poisoning from unsafe storage methods, increased risk for emotional and behavioral issues, poor academic performance, foster care placement, and a loss of a family member. And it's important to note that drug use and misuse doesn't only affect the user, but it has lasting and negative impacts on the individual's social network and family. So I just wanted to take some time to go over the recent drug trends that are occurring nationally. There has been an uptick in the amount of fentanyl-laced substances that are posing as prescription drugs. There's a social media aspect to this where individuals or youth think that they're purchasing an FDA-approved drug illegally over the internet. However, they are getting a completely different and potentially deadly substance. Fentanyl is being used in combination with or as a replacement for other substances like cocaine or prescription pills because it's fairly easy and cheap to create and to add to other substances. It's often added to other drugs because of its extreme potency, which makes the drugs cheaper, more powerful, more addictive, and more dangerous. Fentanyl is also showing up in vapes and marijuana cartridges, and it's not a widespread issue at this time, especially with the legalization of marijuana in New Jersey. So vapes and marijuana sold at dispensaries are at a low risk for containing other substances. While it's not a major risk at the moment, it may pose a threat to underage individuals who are buying these products illegally. So be sure to watch closely as these tainted products can show up in your communities. There's also a large teen knowledge gap about the danger of fentanyl and laced fake pills. So according to the Youth Fentanyl Survey conducted in fall 2022, only 36% of 13 to 17-year-olds are aware of fentanyl and fake pills, and 31% of 13 to 17-year-olds are knowledgeable about fentanyl. So it is important to educate the youth about the dangers of fentanyl and how it can be disguised as other substances to increase harm reduction related to ingesting unknown substances. And then on March 15th, 5 women were found unconscious in the lower level parking garage of the shops at Riverside Mall in Hackensack, New Jersey. The 5 women who were employees at the mall, ranging between the ages of 29 and 41, were suspected of overdosing on fentanyl disguised as cocaine. All 5 of the women were revived at the scene using Narcan and CPR, and 4 out of the 5 women were transported to a local hospital for ongoing treatment. The 5th woman did refuse medical attention after being revived, so she was not transported to the hospital. Unfortunately, one of the 5 women passed away, the 29-year-old, due to the fentanyl-related effects days after the incident. There is limited information on the source of the drugs that were ingested, but police have identified 2 individuals who have been arrested on drug distribution charges. And the investigation is ongoing, so hopefully there'll be more information out soon, but this news story shows exactly how prevalent this epidemic is. And then earlier this year, 2 individuals in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, overdosed eating Delta 8 THC edibles that appeared to contain fentanyl. Thankfully, both of the individuals recovered, but it has started a county-wide investigation. The Montgomery County District Attorney found fentanyl and heroin in strictly Delta gummies, which are called Delta 8 THC 600 milligram Happy Cubes, that were sold at 3 tobacco stores in the country, or in the county. The DA also issued a warning about herb extracts and Packwoods coned, both of which allegedly contained fentanyl. And the owners of the shop were completely unaware that they were distributing illegal substances since they claimed to be buying from trusted vendors. And there's also a new group of opioids that are now making its way into the US population called nitazenes. Nitazenes, which are also called Frankenstein opioids, are a group of synthetic opioids that can be up to 40 times stronger than fentanyl. They can be found in powder, pill, and liquid form, making them easy to mix with fentanyl or oxycodone. And the issue with this is that the user doesn't know that they're buying and ingesting something that is much more dangerous than expected. So due to the potency of nitazenes, nitazene overdoses could require up to 4 doses of naloxone or Narcan to reverse the effects. Currently, they have found nitazenes in laced fake pills in the Midwest, Southern, and Eastern US. And I usually get this question a lot, but why is fentanyl being added to street drugs? Because it seems as though drug dealers are killing off their ideal market for these drugs. So fentanyl is much cheaper to make than other opioids, and it's also easier to smuggle because small amounts of fentanyl are very powerful. So it's a lot easier to smuggle a small baggie of fentanyl powder than a kilogram brick of other drugs for the same profit margin. And it's also often added to other drugs because of its extreme potency, which makes the drugs cheaper, more powerful, more addictive, and more dangerous. Then I just want to touch on the stigma of substance abuse as it affects individuals who are using and not using drugs. So according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health in 2021, 46.3 million Americans aged 12 and older are battling a substance use disorder. That's 16.5% of the US population at that time. That's an extremely large portion of the population who are battling the symptoms and stigma surrounding substance use. And the stigma around substance use can result in people avoiding treatment, leaving treatment or support services early, concealing drug use to healthcare professionals, experience guilt or shame about their activities, and creating barriers in healthcare laws and professionals. So the stigma around substance abuse also makes it extremely difficult for organizations and researchers to obtain accurate data on substance use and misuse in all populations. And because people feel like they're going to be judged for using drugs, they omit sharing that vital information with professionals who can really benefit from it. Now I'm just going to talk about some prevention strategies your organization and you can use to prevent individuals from falling victim to the negative effects of drug use. It's important to know the street names of the different drugs so that you can identify when an individual may be abusing them inconspicuously. I'm not going to name all of them, but some examples of street names for fentanyl are China White, Goodfellas, and Great Bear. And some street names for heroin are Big H, Black Tar, and Smack. More information on the names will be available in the resources that I share with your organizations after the training. And then on this slide, I have some commonly used prescription drugs and their corresponding street names. So for example, some amphetamines include Adderall or Ritalin, and their street names could be Ice or Uppers. And I won't go too in depth with reading all of these on the screen as they are included in the S.P.I.R.I.T toolkit resource that I will administer to your, or I will give to your organization. So according to SAMHSA's National Survey on Drug Use and Health in 2020, ages 12 to 17 are ranked third in misusing prescription psychotherapeutic drugs. So it's important for caregivers to start the conversation about drug use with their children in an appropriate way to increase educational awareness, as well as creating a sense of openness and thorough communication. So this video will go over the do's and the don'ts of having a conversation about substance use with your youth. I'm just going to stop sharing the screen and switch over to the correct one.
So a few don'ts and do's about having a meaningful conversation with someone about substance use is first and probably most important is to avoid blaming and shaming and lecturing. Those are all surefire ways of shutting down the conversation. It's important in having a meaningful conversation with someone that you come from a place of care and concern rather than suspicion and blame. And it's important to make that very clear that you're coming from a place of love and care and concern. I went to a meeting a couple of nights ago, and there was the police and stuff presenting. They say this is serious stuff here.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I know I'm not an idiot. That's not gonna
Well,
happen to me.
you say that, but I don't know if I mean, are you really getting this?
Yeah.
Like, have you read these pamphlets? Because I understand that they're at the school and everyone's supposed to be reading this kind of stuff. Like what does it say here? Like, do you even know what this one says?
I didn't read them. I'm not an idiot. I don't need
Yeah.
to read
Well,
them.
maybe you need to start paying better attention. You know what happens when you don't pay attention?
I'm done with this crap.
Hey, come back here. thanks. I know you're really busy tonight and stuff. You're not in trouble, nothing like that. Just your mom and I were watching TV yesterday, and there was this big thing about fentanyl in Vancouver and stuff. And I really don't know a whole lot about it, but I know that I feel really worried about it. I'm not, worried for you. I'm worried for everybody, really. It sounds pretty scary, but I just want to kind of, check in with you, kind of what you know about it. In speaking with young people, especially young adults, it's important to acknowledge that that person that you care about does have the power to make choices for themselves. So you don't come across as somehow saying that you have the power to make choices for them. Well, sometimes, you don't make the best choices, right? And right now, making some stupid choices can, you can end up dead with this kind of stuff. This is no joke. Well, I know that, we've talked a little bit about this before, and you're a young man now, and it's a big world out there, and you're making choices that you can only make for yourself. No one can make choices for you anymore. That kind of stuff. So I guess we're just really worried about some of the choices you might be making and what's going on for you. It's very important to be curious about what they understand, what their lived experience is, particularly about what's going on in drug use amongst their own friends and their own community. If you do have specific concerns about a young person's drug use, it's important that you are clear and specific and place your concerns in a way that's not blaming, not shaming, and not attacking. And how stupid it is to be using any kind of drugs.
I'm not an idiot.
Well, you can say that, but I think the facts are you have been using some drugs, and even though you know that it could kill you, you've been using drugs. Like, what part of this don't you understand? So, what's it like to talk to your friends about this kind of stuff?
It's kind of just like we all talk about like if we know because every once in a while we'll hear about somebody in a different school or something that's overdosed and have a little conversation about that, and then somebody knew him at our school, and it's a little bit hard talking about it though sometimes.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be the Debbie Downer of the group.
Yeah, like going on and on about it and stuff like that. But
yeah.
It's also very important to be clear that rather than coming from a place of accusing someone, is that you're coming from a place of trying to be helpful and supportive. One suggestion might be is to ask the person about what kind of help or support they might be open to, rather than imposing your beliefs about that. It's also important to finish any conversations with a person about what they would welcome from you or what they would not welcome from you at this point, and perhaps even check in with the person about how the conversation was for them. Don't act as if somehow you don't make stupid choices. Right? And some of the friends you're hanging around with too, right? So, what's with the eye roll? Do you think this is? Do you think I want to sit here and talk to you about this kind of stuff?
I just heard it too many times.
If there's anything I can ever do, or if there's anything you want to find out about, and we could look at stuff together, and because I'm still learning about that would be really cool. If you hear about anything at school, help me understand this stuff better. I'm all in. I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I can make sure I let you know.
Okay. Well, thanks very much to just being so open to talking about this, because I know you're really busy, and I don't exactly know as much as you do about that. So thanks for being so patient.
All right, so just to recap, some do's for starting the conversation include identifying an appropriate time and place to have a conversation, express concern while being direct, acknowledge their feelings and listen, offer to help and be patient, provide reassurance that mental and substance use disorders are treatable, and help them locate and connect to treatment services. And recognize that helping your loved one doesn't happen overnight. Continue to reach out with offers to listen and help. And these conversations can be extremely uncomfortable, but ensuring that you're putting the user's best interest first is a great way to show that you care. So now I'm going to discuss some safe storage and proper disposal methods. So doTERRA bags allow an individual to safely dispose of unwanted or expired prescriptions at home. And the main purpose of doTERRA bags is to prevent the misuse of prescription drugs. And then lock boxes help you keep your medication stored away and prevent any misuse, especially if you have children in your household. On the side, I have a graphic of how to use the doTERRA bag. The first step is to place the unwanted or expired medication in the pouch. Second, you fill the pouch halfway with water. And then lastly, you seal, shake, and dispose of the bag in the trash to deactivate the medications. So I have included a short video on how to use the doTERRA bags that we're going to watch together. So bear with me as I switch screens.
The doTERRA drug deactivation system is an independently tested, safe, and environmentally sound solution to permanently deactivating, destroying, and disposing of unneeded pills, patches, liquids, creams, and films right at home. To begin, tear open the pouch. Do not remove inner pod. Next, place unused medications inside. Once the drugs are in the pouch, fill halfway with warm tap water and wait 30 seconds. The water-soluble pod will dissolve, releasing the carbon and starting the deactivation process. Some foaming may occur during this time, and it's important to leave the pouch open, so air may be released before sealing. After 30 seconds, seal pouch tightly, gently shake, and dispose in normal trash. The empty pill bottles may now be recycled. For more information, visit doterrasystem.com.
So there are also prescription drop boxes throughout New Jersey where individuals can dispose of unused, unwanted, or expired solid medications. Montgomery just added one. So now Somerset County has a total of 18 drop box locations. And in order to use the drop boxes, an individual has to leave the medications in the container, remove any personal information, and then bring it to the participating location. You can scan the QR code on the screen to see the different Dropbox locations throughout the state. And if you're interested in the Somerset locations, they're located at the bottom of the page. So now I'll discuss some preventative strategies for overdose and death related to drug use. Purchasing, possessing, or consuming alcohol is illegal for those under the age of 21. So many teens refrain from asking for help for fear of the consequences of underage drinking violations. But the 911 Lifeline legislation provides immunity to you or your friend from prosecution when these steps are followed. The first step is to call 911 for help. Second, stay with your friend until help arrives. And then 3, talk with authorities. So for example, if a group of friends is drinking underage and one friend passes out or exhibits signs of alcohol poisoning, someone should first call 911 for help. Then they should all stay with their friend until help arrives. And then lastly, talk to the police officers and EMT to get their friends to safety. No one will be charged for drinking underage or using drugs, but it is important to note that while the 911 Lifeline legislation provides immunity from prosecution, it does not provide immunity from prosecution if you are the seller or distributor. And then the Overdose Protection Act, or the Good Samaritan Law, is designed to encourage overdose victims and witnesses to seek medical assistance in the event of an overdose emergency. So although the effects of a drug overdose can be reversible with prompt medical attention, studies show that help is rarely sought in these situations. So by guaranteeing legal protection from arrest and prosecution, this law eliminates fear as a major barrier to seeking help. There's also the Sober Truth for Youth online prevention portal that is designed to raise awareness on the risks of substance use and strategies for staying safe and making good choices. The SAFE Coalition created the educational portal for parents, educators, and youth to visit for information regarding substance use. We have English and Spanish translated videos to fit the needs of our diverse communities, and students and their caregivers can view short videos to increase their knowledge of these important topics, and then take the accompanying quizzes to earn certificates. And then you may have also heard of naloxone as a way to combat and reverse the effects of opioid overdoses. So what is Narcan and naloxone? Naloxone is a medication approved by the FDA that's designed to rapidly reverse opioid overdose, and Narcan is one of the brand names for the naloxone medication. So what is Narcan and naloxone used for? Naloxone is administered when an individual is showing signs of an opioid overdose, and naloxone is a temporary treatment and its effects don't last long. I think it's around 30 minutes. So it's critical to obtain medical intervention as soon as possible after administering or receiving naloxone. And Narcan and naloxone cannot reverse overdoses resulting from non-opioid drugs like cocaine, benzodiazepines, or alcohol. And then on this side, I have a video detailing how to use Narcan or naloxone in case of an emergency that we'll watch. We're going to watch it together.
Naloxone is a medication designed to rapidly reverse opioid overdose. It can restore normal respiration to a person whose breathing has slowed or stopped as a result of overdosing with heroin or prescription opioid pain medications. How to recognize an opioid overdose? Small constricted pinpoint pupils, falling asleep or loss of consciousness, slow, shallow breathing, choking or gurgling sounds, limp body, pale, blue or cold skin. How to use Narcan. 1. Identify an opioid overdose and check for response. 2. If no response, administer Narcan through the nasal passages. This will not cause harm if not experiencing an opioid overdose. 3. Call 911 immediately, as additional support is often needed. 4. Try to keep the person awake and breathing. 5. Lay the person on their side to prevent choking. 6. Stay with the person until emergency workers arrive. To obtain Narcan to carry, please talk to your primary care provider or pharmacist. You do not need a prescription to obtain this overdose reversing medication. Please keep it room temperature.
On March 29th of this year, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration approved 4 milligram Narcan for over-the-counter non-prescription use. This is the first naloxone product approved for use without the need for a prescription, which means individuals will be able to walk into a pharmacy and grab Narcan without the need to get a prescription beforehand. Because opioid overdoses can result in death relatively quickly, time is essential when trying to reverse an overdose. So individuals will be able to buy Narcan to keep in case of emergencies, or even go to the pharmacy and purchase the product when someone is actively having an overdose. The timeline for the availability and the price of this over-the-counter product is going to be determined by the manufacturer, and other formulations and dosages of naloxone will remain available by prescription only. Currently, the FDA is working with stakeholders to try to expand access to Narcan and ensure a smooth transition and rollout for the over-the-counter medicine. And as a side note, Empower Somerset can offer the Save a Life Narcan training to your staff. So if you or your agency is interested in having the training, please let me know and we can set up a session for your agency. Also, if you want to get Narcan or doTERRA bags to distribute or use, reach out to me and we can either send them over or drop them off at your agency. So fentanyl test strips are small strips of paper that can detect the presence of fentanyl or fentanyl analogs in different kinds of drugs and different forms. So analogs are just drugs that are similar in chemical structure or pharmacologic effect to another drug, but they're not identical. So now just to go over the steps on how to use fentanyl test strips. The first step is to put a small amount, which is at least 10 milligrams of your drug, aside in a clean, dry container. Step 2, add water to the container and mix together. Please note, for most drugs, you need half a teaspoon of water, but if you're testing methamphetamines, use 1 full teaspoon. Step 3, place the wavy end of the test strip down in the water and let it absorb for about 15 seconds. Step 4, take the test strip out of the water and place it on a flat surface for 2 to 5 minutes. And then step 5, read the results. So a positive result will have a single pink line on the left-hand side, which indicates that fentanyl or fentanyl analog has been detected in your drugs. If you receive a positive test, it's much safer to discard the batch because using it could kill you. And a negative result is 2 pink lines that indicate that fentanyl or fentanyl analogs have not been detected in your drugs. But remember that no test is 100% accurate and your drugs still may contain fentanyl or fentanyl analogs even if you receive a negative result. You should always take caution as fentanyl test strips might not detect more potent fentanyl-like drugs, and fentanyl might not be everywhere in your drugs and your test might have missed it. And then an invalid result is a pink line on the right-hand side or no lines at all, which indicate an invalid test. So if you do get an invalid result, test your drugs again using a new strip. And then another resource that's available to you is through the New Jersey Harm Reduction Coalition. This organization's goal is to build New Jersey's infrastructure for harm reduction response to drug use and address the gaps in the continuum of care for people who use drugs. The New Jersey Harm Reduction Coalition will mail free fentanyl testing strips to anyone in New Jersey who wants to test their drug supply. And this coalition will also mail free intramuscular naloxone discreetly to anyone in New Jersey who requests it. So in order to receive the naloxone, all anyone would need to do is to view an 8-minute training video, take a short quiz, and provide enrollment information on the NJ Harm Reduction Coalition website. But individuals can also request fentanyl test strips and naloxone confidentially by texting or calling the number 1-877-4-NARCAN. And then Empower Somerset also has some prevention programs aimed at reducing substance use rates. One of the programs is the Strengthening Families program, which is known as Family Unity Night. The Family Unity Night is a program that helps build family communication and connections through family skills training sessions. The program is delivered over multiple 2-hour sessions. So 1 hour is for the parents and children to learn and practice new behaviors separately, and then the following hour is for them to work together as a family. So the specific audience for this program is families with children who are 3 to 5 years, 10 to 14 years, 13 to 17 years, and 7 to 17 years old. And the flyer for the program is included on the slide, so if you'd like more information, please let me know, and I can get you in contact with the program coordinator. Empower also has a youth advisory board, which provides teens with opportunities for leadership at the county, regional, and state levels. This youth-led group aims to make communities safer by focusing on mental health, tobacco use prevention, drug misuse prevention, and suicide prevention. Again, the flyer is included, and just let me know if you'd like more information regarding this youth opportunity. Empower also has an over-the-counter prescription drug safety program. This program is geared towards educating 5th to 8th graders on the importance of medicine awareness. So over the course of this 5-week program, we teach children the difference between over-the-counter and prescription medicines. how to find and properly read the drug facts label, how to properly dose their medications, and the possible consequences of misusing medications. We also provide resources for both students and parents who have questions and where to bring expired or surplus medicines in order to safely dispose of them. And then lastly, we also have the S.P.I.R.I.T Toolkit, which I will be sharing with your agencies. This toolkit is a series of local and national resources for caregivers and youth about substance use. Specifically, this toolkit has a lot of information that I've talked about today, like information on prescription drugs, heroin and fentanyl, the 911 Lifeline legislation and Overdose Protection Act, and the risks associated with substance use. Here is my contact information in case you needed to reach me. My email is just my first name, amisha@empowersomerset.com. These are the different references that I used for this training presentation. And thank you guys so much for all of your attention today. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. I also have an evaluation form that I'll be sharing with your agency. So please fill out the evaluation form after viewing this presentation. And thank you so much for your attention. Have a great day.